This is episode 58 of the Gauntlet Podcast. My name is Jason.
My name is Steve.
And I'm Rich.
Awesome. Hey, Rich, you played a game called Crowsmantle. I've never heard of it. What's that about?
Crowsmantle it was inspired by one of the Fate worlds. You know how Evil has a Patreon or whatever, where they fund different settings to use for Fate. Well, one of them was, what if you were in a Chronicles of Narnia type deal and then you aged out of it and then you were called back? And that was the idea. Lowell has run with that and built, and he really wanted to test out the Powered by the Apocalypse engine, and so he's created a whole system framework for it using really generic versions of the major moves of most of the PBTA games. A lot of times Powered by the Apocalypse, the moves, they're a reflection of the fiction or the setting. And to take them and say, okay, this is an action move, this is a looking at stuff move, and kind of breaking it down into those component parts like most generic systems do, it's an interesting exposure to Powered by the Apocalypse as a core engine. The flavor has come from the actual play and the world, less so with the moves. The moves are just, okay, now we hit the dice. And that version of Powered by the Apocalypse has been an interesting experiment. The thing that I like the most about this session of Crowsmantle, I believe this was our 8th session, we've been playing it quite frequently.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, is that the first half of the game, we were rolling 10s, 11s, 12s, just gangbusters, walking over everything. And then at the very end, literally like 20 minutes before the session is about to end, we're going to rescue a couple of sentient animals from the Goblin Mall. Was the Goblin Markets, but it's the Goblin Mall now because they've modernized, which I thought was hilarious.
The Goblin discount outlets, right?
Yes, we were referred to as potential consumers. It was very amusing. It's quite a good flavor there. Went to rescue a couple of sentient animals from these pens they've been kept in, and during the escape, I think it was like 4 failed rolls in a row.
Ooh.
Wow.
And it was neat because Lowell is very used to Fate, and so a lot of the failures led to ramping up the tension as well as the threat. And so it went from, hey, this has been a pretty easy session, and we're progressing towards kind of the major big bad revelation, all that good stuff going on. And now let's just go break these 2 animals out of a pen. Oh crap, here comes bad thing on top of that, and then the session ended with all of us being captured. It was great with Lowell's skills as a game master to amp up the tension and then find this amazing cliffhanger. But man, it was all die rolls. It's all the dice. Oh!
Awesome. So this is Lowell Francis, I gather?
It is, yeah. It's Lowell Francis.
Okay, cool. I played a game with him this week, too.
Oh, would you play with him?
Oh, I'll talk about it later.
Alrighty. It's almost like that's what this show's about. Okay.
I know, it's crazy. Awesome. Yeah, I'd never heard of that, but I may have to ping Lowell about that. That sounds pretty interesting. I like the idea of kind of boiling. It sounds like it's PBTA, like stripped down to its core, maybe? Is that fair?
Yeah, I think that's a great way to think of it. It really is taking those. What are the moves you see in almost every version? He looked across
act under
a
pressure,
wide spectrum
right?
of PBTA
Discern
games.
realities, read a person. Yeah.
Yep.
Cool. Is there anything else you want to say about it?
No.
All right, cool. Well, Steve, you and I both got a chance to play Public Access.
Yes, indeed.
I'll do the overview.
That's best.
Public Access is a game written by myself. It's currently in playtest. It is about 4 or 5. I'm not sure what the magic number is yet. I think it's still probably 4. I haven't tried 5 yet. 4 or 5 people who have come together on an internet forum to recall their memories of a public access children's television show they watched when they were little kids. And the television show is really low budget and really creepy. It's directly inspired by creepypasta stories like Kendall Cove and 1999. At a certain point, you reveal a mystery about the show. Like, for example, the main actor went missing. Nobody knows what happened to him. Or there was a series of unsolved child abductions around the time the show aired, that kind of thing. You reveal this mystery, and then the players are all recalling their memories of each episode of the show in attempts to try to figure out if there were any clues contained in the show itself about what the mystery, like what the answer to the mystery was. Once you've gathered all your clues and recalled all the episodes, then the characters engage in like kind of their own separate on the ground investigation. And then you come back and you talk about your theories. I thought it went really well. This is the second time I've playtested it. I got lots of really great feedback on it the second time, and I'm excited about that. But Steve, what'd you think?
I was really anticipating this because you'd worked on this from this came out of Three Forged, right?
This is Three Forged, yeah.
Right. I had read Candle Cove years ago and always found that delightfully creepy, and so I thought it was a really solid premise for a game. So I was really excited to go in. I thought it played really well, and I'm looking forward even to the next iteration of the rules, I think.
Right.
I'd love to play test the next round. But yeah, we had a really solid, nicely creepy game about investigating a show called, what was it, like Fireman Fun Time or something?
Fantastic Fun Hour.
There we go.
Featuring 3 stop-motion puppets, Fireman Fred, Louis the Spider, and Tanya.
Right. And of course, interspersed with live action bits from Fireman Fred, who is always shirtless and always has a hatchet, not a hatchet, an axe, like a fireman's axe, and whom you never see above the nose, I think.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I especially enjoyed, like, describing the episodes.
Right, yeah.
I've watched some public access in my day.
Right, yeah.
It sounds just plausible enough to make for a really creepy story.
There are 2 things I really enjoy about this game so far. And like I said, it still needs some work. And in fact, you guys gave me some really terrific constructive feedback, which I was super excited about, and I can't wait to incorporate that stuff. Or some of it. I mean, there was some of it where it was good feedback, but didn't quite align with my vision of the game. But then there's a lot of it that was really, really good feedback that I want to use. But I think that the fun part for me is, like, you each in turn describe the episodes of the TV show, but you're explicitly, like, describing it in character, but just your character's memory, because you don't have access to them anymore, the actual, like, shows themselves. It's pre-internet, right? I like the way that, like, there's this interplay between, like, your character's memory, but also, like, the other players can suggest, like, how they remembered the episode, and which may or may not, like, become, like, your sort of canonical memory, right? And just this, like, gradually, like, you know, as a group process, like, building up the creep factor, right? And then the other thing I like, which I thought we had a pretty good payoff on at the end, was you have that conversation at the end about what you think was actually happening, like, as far as the mystery goes.
Yeah.
And you talk about it as if it was a real thing that, like, occurred in life, right? like you have this, like, suspension of disbelief where you're, like, having this conversation like it's a for real thing, you know? Which is kind of like in Society of Dreamers. Like, Society of Dreamers has a lot of that, right? Like, you have those, you engage in similar conversations in that game. And so I like kind of meta conversations that kind of blend in with, like, in fiction, like what the characters themselves might be saying. So, but I think there was some really, really great feedback on it. There's some real distinct specific changes I want to make to sort of the second half of the game. And I think it's going to be great.
Yeah.
It's a short, fast game. It was written for Three Forged, so it's, like, by necessity, like, pretty short. I don't know. I think this might be something that, you know, I don't know where it goes in the future, but will probably be a part of Codex at some point.
Oh, yeah, that would be really cool.
Maybe, yeah, I don't know. I got to figure out a way to, like, get it out there in the world.
Yeah.
So, once it's done. But cool. I don't have anything else to say about it, though.
Yeah, I mean, I think we covered it. It's hard to go into too much specificity since it's just a playtest still.
It's playtest, right? Yeah. Awesome. Hey, Rich.
Hey, Jason.
I don't know what Blue Rose is either.
Oh,
What's
man.
Yeah, all I know is it's an older D20 setting. That's it.
It was, and still is. Green Ronin put it out. During the 3rd edition Everybody Make a Supplement days,
Glut.
there was, Glut. Sure, we'll go with Glut. There was a variant of the 3rd edition called True 20, which tried to scale down. Would say probably didn't really succeed at scaling it down a whole lot. But there was an entire campaign setting and a set of books, and all of them were inspired by romance fantasy, which is a style of fantasy that tried to re-envision what a fantasy world could be like. The authors are Tamora Pierce, Mercedes Lackey, and the like. And so it was very inspired by that, and this was the Blue Rose campaign setting, to me, the idea of it is fascinating. And in fact, late last year, Green Ronin, who now they do the Fantasy Age as well as the Dragon Age tabletop.
Yeah. That's what I know them from, is Dragon Age, yeah.
Well, they had a pretty successful Kickstarter to take Blue Rose and reimagine it with the Fantasy Age RPG system instead of using True 20. I back that because, number one, I'd like to check it out, and number two, they gave all of the PDFs of the True 20 supplements as one of the backer levels.
So that's cool.
Why not?
Yeah,
Cool. Yeah.
My Saturday night group, we showed up, we were going to play Ghost Lines, and two of the players looked at me and said, yeah, we played like 5 sessions. I'm not feeling it. Like, I really don't want to play any more Ghost Lines. And I thought to myself, yeah, I didn't do as good a job as Jason at Ghost Lines. Dang it.
Well, I don't know. We only played 4 sessions, so it may not have any legs after that. I don't know.
Well, and we only played like every 5 or 6 weeks. It was supposed to be a bi-weekly group.
Whoa.
That might have something to do with it, too. What was happening last session? I don't know. That was a month ago.
So those things conspired, and then we went through a rough, real quick throw together pitch session of different ideas, and I convinced them, hey, let's try Blue Rose. And they got excited, and so I went away. Well, I spent like half an hour with them talking through Blue Rose, and we took a look at the books, and I saw pages and pages and pages of feats, and the combat section, and the psionics.
So you had not read it yet?
No, I had read all of the setting stuff, everything to the mechanics, because I played lots of D&D. I figured, well, you know, I could play that. Like, I just assumed it'd be...
Were there skill checks?
Oh, God, there's so many skill checks. So many skills. I just got disheartened. I'm like, you know, we could try to power through, but maybe we don't. And I was about to give up, and then we talked back and forth and said, okay, well, what are we going to do? I can't even remember who suggested it. Somebody said, hey, idiot, how about Dungeon World? I'm like, oh, yeah.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, that's a good idea.
That's a good idea, Rich. Yeah. So a couple of the characters are really interesting because in the setting, there are intelligent animals who speak via psionics, because the idea of a Rydian wolf who goes, rawr, how's it going, dude? Like, that's a little too beyond the pale for us. So in the setting, psionics kind of replaces magic, right? And
okay.
So
that's good.
The Rydians are the talking animals.
Yeah, I like that.
And they don't talk out loud. They have psionics. So we have a Rye Wolf, and I look through the True 20, which, by the way, so you read the Rye Wolf, it says you have this feat. I go to that feat. It's linked to another feat, which cross-references to another page. Finally, I just took the PDF, and I had to do a search on the term and go through 28 different versions of the term where it was referenced to find out exactly what the feat did and what prerequisites are. And I'm like, okay, wait a second. So this is a feat to allow a player character to talk to somebody. Do I really want dice to decide if someone gets to have a conversation?
Yes. Oh, what a good insight. Did you just get rid of it completely?
Yeah, I just said you can talk.
Yeah,
I said, you can talk. It's all good. We're going to hand wave that away. You don't talk out loud. It's mind touch, but it's just you talk. That was a thing where we all breathe a sigh of relief. During character creation, one of the things, and I know you guys are big on flags, and I don't have a dog in this fight, but 2 of the players had never played Dungeon World. And I didn't want to say, here's Dungeon World. Oh, and on top of that, I'm going to layer this. So I figured.
Oh no, you should always do rules as written for a newbie person, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Good. It makes me feel good to hear that from the DR expert that you are.
So you mean
DR?
DW expert. Like, I'm an expert in DR.
Well, you're the discerned realities expert.
He's an expert
about.
Expert from DR. Got it. Okay. I'm very, very good at discern realities. The move, though, it's my favorite move of all the moves.
Okay. So as a Dungeon World expert, Jason, I am glad that you approved my raw to start us off.
Well, I just think it's good. That's just good practice for any game, right? When you're especially when you're trying to sell somebody on something, you should give them the rules as written experience. I think to do otherwise is super presumptuous, for one thing, because you're making a lot of assumptions about what kind of player they are and whether they can handle your twee, well thought out house rules, right? if they decide to go play it outside of your purview, you haven't really equipped them properly, right?
That's true. Plus, 2 of them had the PDF, and they hadn't gotten to use it, and so they're pretty excited to go rules as written rather than rules, except for this one thing the Rich did.
Right, exactly.
But totally, guys, it's on this podcast, and they love it, so it must be better. No, so we did bonds, and it was a neat result because we had the Rye Wolf as a cleric. We have a person who chose to play a fighter, but to interpret it as being one of the knights of the Blue Rose Knights, a ranger, and then later a druid. The player wasn't able to make it to the character creation, but we later integrated the druid. But the bonds, because there are only so many bonds in rules as written, at one point both the cleric and the fighter have chosen that they're looking out for the ranger.
Okay.
And that led to an interesting conversation as we say, well, wait a second, this ranger has an animal companion that's a bear. Why are a fighter and a cleric who happens to be a wolf, why are you both looking out for this guy? He seems to be all right.
He's doing okay.
Yeah.
It could have been one of those, well, we're just going to blindly just go with that. But it led to a conversation of, well, what is it about the ranger that he does that puts him in danger? We found out he's a ranger through and through. Like, he is not used to social situations.
Right.
The knight is going to have to be dealing with royal court and a lot of intrigue. And so that's where they see the danger is, hey, you can't bring your bear here. You can't come into this grand hall and do that kind of stuff. So it helped to shape the idea of some of the challenges that they're going to need to face for those bonds to matter. And that's what I really found interesting about that process.
And bonds remain strong in that way, right? My biggest issue with him has always been that they don't fit with how we organize games, right? It's a gauntlet problem because we have like this rotating cast of players, from say every 3 or 4 weeks. If you have a character from 2 adventures ago, you might be with a bunch of completely different people, and suddenly your bonds don't have a lot of purchase anymore. And so it was always kind of a problem specific to like how I run games and organize games. I think they've always been good for like having that conversation at the table about how do you guys know each other, like how do you all fit in, like what's the, tell us, kind of working out your backstory. It's the same thing with like backstory in Monster Hearts or the history questions in Monster of the Week, right? It serves the same purpose.
Yeah, it worked out really well, and I had not seen bonds lead to a conversation about the connectivity of the group and then give me a lot of cues for, okay, these are the kind of stories that we need to be telling for these bonds to be relevant. So I really enjoyed that.
If they ever do a second edition of Dungeon World, what I would love to see is keep bonds, have bonds. You can have these pre-written bonds. I think that's fine, but unattach them from having like a specific mechanical function. I don't like how they work vis-a-vis help or aid and interfere, and maybe just have aid and interfere be stat based rather than bond based, and just have them be like character group formation history building. I think that would be perfect. I would be totally into that if you never had to look at them again, basically.
Rich, is the Blue Rose setting is it an intrigue heavy type of thing?
There's some potential. The big thing that we're doing is that the court moves every few years into outside of the main capital city because the queen, and this is traditional, but the queen wants to be able to see day-to-day life throughout her kingdom. And so I've put her moving the court up to the north, which is on the border with this horrible country called Kern, which is run by a lich. And so that's the intrigue, is that there's going to be there are going to be some diplomats. There are going to be some things that happen along the lines of, you've got some refugees who've come from Kern. What do you do? Are there spies among them? Things like that.
Okay. Do you feel that Dungeon World will be sufficiently stretchy to encompass that sort of thing?
Yeah, is it going to hold up?
I hope so. That's a really good question. We may end up having to kind of...
Custom moves. Make some custom
That's
moves.
True. That is a really good suggestion. So maybe on Discern Realities, you can ask people for courtly intrigue custom moves.
We'll have a Blue Rose custom move contest.
Yes, please.
Yes, please. Awesome. Steve, I gather you got a chance to play the Bioterrorist variant on Pandemic. I can't remember if I played that one or not. I think I maybe did in the old edition, but not the newer one. How'd it go?
I've had the On the Brink expansion, which is what this comes from, for like 5 years, and I've finally played all the variants that come with it. So the Bioterrorist expansion, or the Bioterrorist variant, allows a pandemic game that plays as normal, except with one player that is a bioterrorist. And it's not a secret, they're openly this role, but their movements and sometimes their actions are secret. And they're very much playing against the other players and trying to encourage the spread of a 5th purple cube disease, in addition to the normal 4 regular colors. It was interesting. It combined pandemic with the secretive movements of like Letters from Whitechapel or
Scotland Yard,
and Fury of Dracula and all that.
Right.
I had fun because I was the bioterrorist, but it really seemed one-sided. It seemed like we only went with 5 epidemic cards, so we went pretty easy. And on top of that, I was just screwing them over constantly.
Yeah, I've wondered about that one because I remember for the first edition Pandemic reading some reviews of that bioterrorist thing and getting kind of a similar impression, which is it just doesn't quite work, right? The balance is not quite right. Was that your feeling overall? Like the balance was just a little off on that?
Yeah, I want to try it again to see if that feeling would hold up over multiple plays, but it really felt like that. Like I mean... Because they have normal rounds, which screw them over the normal way.
Like the normal way, plus the bioterrorist, right?
Right. And I don't just take a turn when it comes around to me. I do 2 actions after everyone's turn. So like, Jason, you go, then I do 2 things. Then Rich goes, then I do 2 things. Then Jason goes, then I do 2 things.
Jeez, Pete.
It seems a little tedious. It seems tedious, too. It seems like it's just a lot of work.
I don't know. It didn't seem like that. Normally you don't draw cards as normal. So one of the actions can be, I draw a card, and that sort of thing can go really quick. Mm-hmm. So I don't know, it played quick enough, but it felt really lopsided, so yeah.
Yeah, I'd be interested to hear if you do it again, how it goes. Tell me what you guys think about this, okay? This is like sort of an ideology that I started to develop like toward the end of my board game years, which was around 2010 or 11. It was, there are so many games out there, and I don't get enough chance to play all of the games as it is. So I don't really feel the need to get into all the expansions. Like, it's enough for me just to play the solid core game, right?
I get you. No, that makes a lot of sense.
I can see that for a lot of games, but for something like Pandemic especially, where a lot of people after, several plays, they've sort of...
You get really good at it.
Yeah. Then something like On the Brink can be really good because it gives you 2 ways that aren't lopsided, I would say, to still keep it a cooperative game, but make it much more difficult. So I think there's still some value in that.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I mean, I'm speaking like in extremes or whatever, but that kind of became my general sort of like toward the end of like when I was really, really heavy into board games. It was like, oh man, I just feel like this is a cash in, and I already haven't played the base game more than twice. So like that was kind of I was kind of landing on expansions toward the end. But
yeah, me too. Fighting myself right now because after the enjoyable experience of playing Tokaido, I went on, and there are a couple of expansions listed on Amazon, and it's a hard fight. But then I look at the price, and I'm like, well, I could get this whole other game for that exact amount of money.
Right, and how many times have you played base Tokaido so far, too?
Exactly, twice.
Yeah,
exactly.
Twice.
Yeah.
So that is true a lot of the time, but then again, there's Imperial Salt, which has a ton of expansions, and I just want them all. Just give me them. Good,
you got one in. Take a drink.
It's just a center square now. It doesn't even count anymore. I'm going to make it a center square so you never have to talk about it again. All right. So let's just keep going. Is there anything else you want to say about Pandemic?
No.
I got a chance to do a play test of a game by Alessandro Pirotti called Touched by Evil. It was really good. So Touched by Evil, it's very similar to Lovecraft-esque, which is another game we've talked about a lot on the cast. You have a protagonist, or you can have a single protagonist, or you can have multiple protagonists. We chose to have a single protagonist who is becoming gradually aware of this horror, and they have these shadows that are related to the horror that are kind of inserting themselves into the character's life, and they are gradually moving through a structured narrative progression to get to the horror at the end. Now, it's a little different from Lovecraft-esque in the sense that in Lovecraft-esque, it's more of a proactive investigation, and you're collecting clues, whereas in this game, you're collecting what Alessandro calls shadows. They seem a lot like clues, but I think they're supposed to have more of an emotional element to them. So it's not so much like the green slime you found on the tree that glows. It's more about like, how did that green slime make you feel? And so that's how you're supposed to interpret them. It was a little unclear, if I'm being honest. I think he's going to have to flesh that out more and more in the text, because even in Lovecraft-esque, the clues are not easy to wrap your head around sometimes, and this seemed even more like sort of cerebral. But we started to kind of get the swing of it, enough to play anyway. So similar but different. It also is meant to be played in more than one session, whereas Lovecraft-esque is explicitly a one-shot. But they are very similar in the sense that they clearly both share a lot of Graham Walmsley's Lovecraftian ideology, like that came from his Stealing Cthulhu book, right? Like this idea that you don't reveal overt supernatural things right away. You don't show graphic violence right away. You gradually unfurl those things until you get to, a dark underground place where the evil thing is, right? It has that same kind of philosophy behind it. So it felt pretty similar.
Does it seem like this game could result in a more personal, I don't know if I want to say personal horror. I think that has some connotations I don't necessarily intend. A horror that you sort of build up around the character, the way you can sometimes do in Society of Dreamers I've seen?
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. I mean, we only played it the one time, and because it's designed to be played over multiple sessions, we weren't able to actually finish our story. It was a playtest of one session, and so we were only able to get through about maybe half of a full game. And so I can't really quite speak to that yet, but I really enjoyed our story. I mean, the game is doing some really cool things, and probably the thing that we all agreed we liked the best was it's really, really beautifully paced. It has such a good mechanical pacing method in it. I love that. It reminded me a lot of... Are you guys familiar with Zombie Cinema?
Yes.
Zombie Cinema has that little board, and as you move back and forth on the board, it controls the narrative beats of the zombie movie, right? Like you get... You're in the right like narrative beat space for the standard zombie flick. This does something similar. It has like a physical board that you are gradually progressing up, like forward, but along different axes, but you're basically going forward to the conclusion. And depending on where you're at, it kind of changes the narrative beats of the classic sort of Lovecraftian tale, right? Like it puts you, like these are the things you do when you're in this like station on the board, right? That's really great. Also kind of like Zombie Cinema, it has this other piece that is called the Menace die that's moving up kind of behind you. And every time it catches up with you, it triggers this like perspective shift where you then have a scene from the perspective of one of the main protagonists' sort of like loved ones, like a person that they're really close to, and you get to see that character's story a little bit. Or there's 3 different loved ones you can have, but ours just happen to be the same one each time. But so it's almost like a little B story, like the really main protagonist. Yeah, it's cool. The main protagonist has his story, and then every now and then you cut away and you see a little bit of what this person that the main protagonist is close to, what they're going through, right? And it was really neat. It felt very cinematic, and I think that was his goal. And if it was his goal, he succeeded. It was really quite good. So yeah, the pacing is quite nice. It's really, really, really lovely.
I really love the sound of those, the like B-plot scenes. Is the secondary character, or are the secondary characters, the loved ones, are they going through things related to the supernatural weirdness, or what are they doing? What are they dealing with?
So the shadows affect them also, but the shadows affect them in like really specific ways. By the end of the first time we see one of the side characters, the loved one characters, have a scene, they have to feel like despondent by the end of it, right? So whatever the shadows are, it's making them feel despondent. And then their circumstance gets gradually worse. It's like another way of looking at the darkness. And it was really effective. Like it was super, super effective. And it felt very cinematic. We were quite happy with it. We had a great time. The story was awesome. Like I said, we couldn't finish, but we were having a real conversation about like maybe finishing up the story at some point because we liked it that much, And this is the game that I played with Lowell.
Right. Okay.
Okay, cool.
From the Age of Ravens blog and
Play on Target
podcast. Yeah, Play on Target. Great player, really cool guy. It was really fun to get to play with him for the first time. And I also got to play with David, who is always fun to play with. So yeah, it was a fun time. Really, really neat game. I'm excited to see where it goes.
That sounds right up my alley. I'll have to keep an eye out for that.
Yeah, it was good. I think Lovecraft-esque in this game they're doing a very similar thing, but just different enough. Like they each have their own like little strengths that make them both like have a nice, a reason to exist at the table, at the same table.
Yeah.
This game, Touched by Evil, has a slightly more languid pace and a slight heavier emphasis on sort of emotional complication, emotional drama.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Good.
Yeah, it sounds interesting.
Yeah. I don't have anything else to say about it, but so why don't we just go on to the next segment? All right, we're going to close the show with Giving Me Life, a one-time revival of Giving Me Life, or for
David did this. He was complaining it was gone, and now it's back.
Indeed. It would have been a much better place to talk about Doom, the video game.
Indeed.
He's very excited about Doom. He gets a pass because he worked on the game for a long time. Hey, Rich, what's Giving You Life?
There is a comic put out by Marvel called A-Force. Have either of you heard of A-Force?
No.
Nope.
Okay, it first came out during the Secret Wars giant crossover event that happened last year. It was conceived and written by G. Willow Wilson of Ms. Marvel fame. If you're into comics, you've heard of the excitement around Ms. Marvel. If you haven't, that's quite all right. Don't worry about it. The pitch for A-Force: all the female superheroes from the Avengers and across the Marvel line are all part of this A-Force. So they're led by She-Hulk. We also have Dazzler. Hopefully you guys have heard of Dazzler. She's like
Wasn't she like the disco? Yeah.
She was fabulous.
She's totally the disco
She
queen.
was fabulous. I loved Dazzler when I was a kid. I wanted to be Dazzler.
Oh my gosh.
I was like, how do I get to be Dazzler? She's great.
Dazzler is awesome. Nico Minoru, who's from the Runaways comic, that was
that's
really
a good one
awesome.
too. That was the last comic I actually read, like regularly, was Runaways. So.
Oh, it was super great. And Captain Marvel, Carol Danvers' Captain Marvel, who's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And Medusa, who's the wife of Black Bolt. So they shoehorned in an Inhuman.
She's an Inhuman. I was about to say she's an Inhuman. I was going to show my
Good
my
call.
vast
Nice
comics knowledge.
job,
Yeah.
Love it.
She had fabulous hair. That's why I knew who she was too. Yeah.
Dude, that's totally mentioned in the comic. Like, she has fabulous hair. It says that. Prehensile strong and fabulous hair.
Wait, whoa. I'm sorry. She has prehensile hair?
Yeah, her hair is prehensile.
Oh.
Yeah, she has super
awesome,
long
though.
hair. It is incredibly strong, and it's prehensile. She uses it like...
It will choke you out, fool.
Yeah, totally.
That's great.
And then a new character called Singularity, which is like a pocket universe in a young girl's body. Kind of weird.
Oh, okay.
Alrighty.
So in Acadia, it was this weird Secret Wars thing where they were already established. They were friends. They worked together. And it was just for the event, right? It was this kind of thought experiment because there were a bunch of weird worlds. And the different worlds were mastered over by the Thor Corps. It was a bunch, like all the Thors were basically the cops of this place. and Doom was the god, the literal god of all this world. So that's kind of wackadoodle Marvel craziness. Thing was, A-Force was popular enough that they said, you know what, when we get back to the normal timeline, let's pick this back up. Now, I had read the first issue during Secret World, and I thought, oh, this is pretty cool. I need to come back to it. But I'm really infrequent about comics. Like, Saga's the only thing that I stay mostly up on, and everything else I'll just dribs and drabs. I had heard that the issue 5 of A-Force was super awesome, and this was the newly launched series. And I checked it out just on a whim. It is super awesome. It has a Dazzler Thor.
Nice.
That is a Thor.
That's pretty good. Yeah.
Allison is a Thor. It is so fabulous. She's really, really cool. And it was this amazing episode that the issue was, it was a lot of stuff out of context. There's the 5th issue in the series. They had a series during Arcadia. The reins had been passed. G. Willow Wilson stepped off of the book, as well as Marguerite Bennett, who was one of the writers during the Secret World piece. And now Kelly Thompson's writing it. And it was such a great jumping on point. It was exciting, vibrant. I love the relationship between the characters. It almost felt like Marvel's love letter to Rat Queens in a way, except less gross. Like, even though they did end up at a bar, and the Dazzler Thor throwing out, "Tell me of this sandwich of Reuben." It just so good, so good, guys. Oh man,
does Dazzler Thor have a mirror ball Mjolnir?
She does not.
I'm out.
But she did name her hammer it was made from a star, and she named her hammer like Light Dancer or something. It was really cool.
I'm back in. Awesome.
And you got double the Dazzler guys because there was already a Dazzler on the team. So you had Dazzler.
Oh, so it's Dazzler and Thor.
This is a separate. Okay.
Dazzler and Dazzler Thor having a conversation and getting weirded out. It was really cool.
I love it. Let me tell you why I love it. So when I was reading comics, and especially as I got a little bit older and started becoming like more and more of like my gayness and like starting to perceive like things in pop culture like just through a different lens, I came to believe that the reason why Dazzler was such a shit upon character, because she really was for a long time, right? Like Dazzler was like kind of a joke character in the 80s and 90s.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I began to believe that the reason why she was kind of a shit upon character was because she was so feminine and so fabulous and so like just so ridiculously girly, and to me, like the hate that a lot of people had for Dazzler, like it read that way to me, right? Like, oh, I think people don't like Dazzler just because she's so fabulous, and like, whether that was true or not, that's how I perceived it. And I think it's great. I think it's great that there's a place for Dazzler and Thor Dazzler now. So yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, I am too. And the Dazzler Thor is super awesome. The She-Hulk in this is one of my favorite iterations of She-Hulk. I've been a fan. I really love Dan Slott's writing of She-Hulk when she was a lawyer and she would use issues of comics to as part of what she would use on the stand because it had the Comics Code Authority, so it was legal documents. Oh, it was hilarious. But yeah, there's a point where they fight a dragon, guys. It's amazing. It's just such a great issue. The other issues are pretty good, but this one was like, okay, if this is the way it's going to be going forward, this is the comic for me. It's like, it's great. A-Force, check it out.
Awesome, cool.
Yeah.
Steve, what's giving you life? Please say Game of Thrones.
Let me think about it. Okay, so what's giving me life right now, no surprise, is the current season of Game of Thrones.
It's so good. Oh my god.
Wait. Are we doing spoilers?
No.
No.
Okay.
No,
we're
not
of course.
No, I mean we could speak about it in general terms and not spoil it.
Yeah. I'm going to be super vague. But this is the first season where almost everything goes beyond the books that have been published. Because George R.R. Martin moves at a glacial pace, and I love him, but that's very true. So the show is lapping him. And
it's hot as fuck. I love it. I'm into it.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so good.
It's so exciting not knowing what the hell is coming next. And this season is just like right hook, left hook, sucker punch.
So good.
Over and over again with stuff we've been wondering about forever and
for 30 years.
Huge.
Right.
Yeah. Published in 96. 2 decades. 2 decades.
2 decades. Yeah.
Some of these things, especially one of the things that popped up in last episode.
It's
Yeah. The vague thing that we will not specify. And yeah, it's really great.
Thanks, guys.
And the writing is like there was stuff I liked in season 5, but there's a plot line that I'm not a huge fan of, and my opinion is reflected amongst many viewers, I think. And they sort of shot that plot line in the knee and just left it to die, I think.
They took that sucker out back and shot it in the head like no one's business.
Yeah. So I'm real happy about this right now.
It's great. You know what I love about it? I love how I said this on our Slack today. I love how matter-of-factly and casually and quickly they're just like totally answering fan theories that people have sat on for 20 years, right? Like people have been letting these for simmer for 20 years, and in like 30 seconds, like, yep, that was the answer. Next. like moving on to the next thing. I'm digging it. I love the pace. Ever since they broke free of the books, the show is like really, really like hitting a new. I've always loved the show, but man, it's like it's on a great trajectory right now. I'm digging it so much.
Yeah, I'm happy that, in my opinion, it's turned around and now has a great trajectory. So I'm super excited. God, it's 6 more days till there's another episode.
I know. I wish Dan was here so he could excoriate us for talking about Game of Thrones so much on the cast. Okay, that's your job now, Rich.
Guys, come on, let's move on.
Thank you. The thing giving me life. Do you guys know what Chuck Tingle? Do you know who that is?
Nope.
Ever heard of Chuck
Tingle? Rings a bell, but no.
Okay, so Chuck Tingle, I've only learned about him because he's involved in some of that business with the Hugo Awards. You know, there's like those sort of like Hugo, like Gamergate-esque Hugo sci-fi
sad
people.
puppies or whatever.
Puppies,
The puppies or something. Yeah, I don't really understand any of it, and so I'm not up on all the like ins and outs of it, but somehow, like through reading some of this stuff, I got connected up with this guy named Chuck Tingle, and he writes these. I don't really even know what they are. They're erotic short stories. They're erotic gay short stories that are like clearly meant to be like satire and parody of like normal erotica, but they also like are written like in this really like matter-of-fact way, and you can't help but like it's really brilliant and really stupid, and it's just kind of mind-blowing, like this it's almost like performance art, like this Chuck Tingle guy. I'm not making a lot of sense. I'm just going to tell you like just some Chuck Tingle stuff, okay? You should go look up the whole saga with the puppies and the Hugos. I don't really understand it, but I think Chuck Tingle is a great thing to come out of it. So, okay, he writes these gay porn eroticas, and now this is very not safe for work, okay? So if you are listening with your kids, this is your final warning. Turn off the podcast and join us. Actually, this is the last thing, so just turn it off now. This is totally not safe for work. You have been warned. Okay, so he writes, I'm just going to rattle off some of the titles. And these are things you can purchase on Amazon. These are for real books.
Really?
Yes. That's what makes it so funny. My Billionaire Triceratops Craves Gay Ass. That was his first work. His most popular work, for which the puppies nominated him for a Hugo, is Space Raptor Butt Invasion. There's Bigfoot Sommelier Butt Tasting. Now I have to read you the Bigfoot Sommelier. So even if you don't, you should not pick up any of these books. I mean, like, I guess maybe one or two for a lark. They're only like 5,000 words long. They're really short books. But and he pumps out like a new one every 2 days. So, and they have cover art and stuff, and they're really awesome.
Pardon my laughter. I made the mistake of reading ahead.
Yeah. Okay, so Bigfoot Sommelier, butt tasting. I just have to read the. You can go through Amazon and just read all the synopses, and the synopses are worth it. Like, this is totally worth your time. Nick is the most girl crazy dude in his frat, but when him and the bros head up to Napa Valley for a quiet weekend, Nick quickly realizes that his chances of scoring a chick are next to nothing. Nick's disappointment soon turns into a powerful gay attraction, however, when he meets a dashing Bigfoot sommelier, Torbo Gulgot, who invites him back for an after-hours sampling. Little does Nick realize it's not the wine that Torbo will be tasting, it's Nick's hot bro ass. It's so amazing. He uses some of his books to sort of comment on like social commentary and current events. So, for example, there's "Oppressed in the Butt" by my inclusive holiday coffee cups. "Pounded in the Butt" by my irrational bigoted fear of humans who were born as unicorns using a human restroom. And "Feeling the Burn in My Butt." That one features a unicorn with Bernie Sanders glasses on the cover. It's amazing.
Real quick, I'm sorry, my favorite off the list on the notes here, "Pounded in the Butt by My Own Butt."
Yes. Pounded in the Butt by My Own Butt. I read the synopsis for this one earlier. "Pounded in the Butt by My Own Butt" is about a bunch of clone researchers who combine human DNA with animal parts and like different parts of humans into animal parts, and they create this like butt hawk. It's like a butt with wings, and then it pounds the guy in the butt. So
wow, and snorted.
And there are a bunch of sequels to that one. That one has sequels. "Pounded in the Butt by My Book," "Pounded in the Butt by My Own Butt," and "Pounded in the Butt by My Book," "Pounded in the Butt by My Book," "Pounded in the Butt by My Own Butt." So it goes on for about 7 or 8 on that one. Wow. Go check out the Tinglers. They're called Tinglers. These little books are called Tinglers.
I need a cigarette.
Anyway, they're great. Chuck Tingle's amazing. I've been laughing about it for the last 3 days. So I don't have anything else to say about it. That was our show, listeners. If you're still here, you should go to our website. It's called gauntlet-rpg.com. On that website, we'll have links to our Google Plus community, which you should join, our Twitter, which is @GauntletRPG, as well as links to all of our other podcasts and our various meetups where we organize games. I don't have anything else. Thanks so much, Rich.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
And thanks, listeners.
The Kapow thing that I would have talked about was, hey, so when you do an all call on invites and you have too many people show up, what should you do?
Just let them go.
If you love them, set them free.